Welcome to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. The only podcast where it's okay to talk in band. On this podcast, you will be able to hear conversations with some of the greatest names in wind band conducting, composing, and arranging. We'll also visit with great college, high school, middle school, and elementary band directors to get their thoughts on various aspects of being a band director. We'll have regular check-ins with instrument specialists, music dealers, and instrument repair professionals. And if that's not enough, we'll even have regular conversations with Dr. Tim, who will help keep us motivated. That's Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. And now, here's Charlie.
Welcome to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends, and this, our 33rd edition in the Band Talk podcast series. As always, I'm honored that you're joining us today for two wonderful conversations. On this episode, we'll begin with Marcia Neel, the retired supervisor of music for Clark County, Nevada, and Marcia now runs Music Education Consultants. She's also a Senior Director of Education for Yamaha and serves as an educational member of the Music Achievement Council, which is a correlated effort between NAM, the National Association of Music Merchants, and NASMD, the National Association of School Music Dealers. I'm also a member of the Music Achievement Council, and I can tell you that the purpose of this council, the Music Achievement Council, or MAC as we refer to them, is to get more kids in band and orchestra and to keep them there. And we're going to be talking about a very special program that MAC has launched, and that is the First Performance National Day of Celebration. Also on today's podcast is Cheryl Floyd. Cheryl spent 35 years teaching middle school band, and many of them in Texas, where she developed a middle school band program that was second to none. Cheryl is going to chat about the philosophy she embraced to help her develop that program and how she developed a supportive relationship with her administration. And she's also going to talk about being turned down by Frank DeKelly when she asked him to compose a work for her band. This started the commissioning project that changed her life. It's an enlightening conversation, and that's going to be coming up in just a few minutes. As we begin today's conversation with Marcia Neel, and we chat about the First Performance National Day of Celebration, I want to take a minute to talk about the importance of keeping students playing their instruments. And during this pandemic, when so many students are experiencing band virtually, it is more important than ever for us to get our students to play their horns. Get them to record themselves. Give them some music that they can play. Play without too much trouble. They don't have too many hurdles for them to climb. Music that they will enjoy playing. It's just so important that we keep kids playing their horns. During a previous podcast with Jerry Hoover, Mr. Hoover talked about how he would instruct his students to go home and play for their parents, how he instructed them to let their parents know they were in for a special concert performance this evening. If you haven't listened to Mr. Hoover's podcast, I really encourage you to do so. But the point here is that students begin playing a musical instrument to do just that, to play a musical instrument, to play in band. And whether you're face-to-face with your students or virtually, you have to find ways to get them playing. If you are working with beginners, there are programs like the Essential Elements Interactive website that is free and allows students to play their lines alongside of professional musicians with a variety of musical accompaniments. Teachers can make assignments, have students submit recordings, and then provide them audio and even written feedback. Of course, there's smart music that many teachers are using, and there's even a program on YouTube called Scoreplay. That's by Hal Leonard, too, and it has hundreds of band arrangements that play the music in real time. It is played so that if a student has a part for that particular piece, they can play along. It was really developed as a tool for teachers to look at scores of band works and listen to a representative recording. and it's a great resource, but it can also be used with students as a track they can play along with. In our conversation with Marcia that's coming up, the analogy is made between kids playing beginning soccer versus beginning band. You know, in soccer, they have a few early practices and bam, they're out there playing their first game. And it's not a pretty sight. But they are playing, and for them, it's real. But in band, I feel teachers are too concerned about their image and not the fact that students just need to play early and they need to play often. Even if it's only a couple of lines from their method book. Having short, informative, developmental concerts in the early years does many things. It gets kids excited about playing their instruments in front of others. It engages the parents and affirms that their investment in music was a good one. And for the teachers, it eliminates stress because it's just a show and tell, and it's not a tribunal on the quality of your teaching. So keep your kids playing, and when you're back to face-to-face teaching, record your rehearsal. Audio is fine for this exercise I'm going to talk about. And then log the number of minutes the students play versus the time they don't play. Pay particular attention to how long they played versus didn't play in each segment of the rehearsal along the way. When you get done, total it all up. Now, you may be surprised by the results you get, and you may find the real reason why your band may not be playing at the level you had hoped. You just got to keep them playing. We'll be right back with Marcia Neel.
Today's podcast is made possible through the support of Hal Leonard, publisher of the Essential Elements Method for Band and the Essential Elements interactive website that is free for Essential Elements users. Essential Elements Interactive, or EEI, is a state-of-the-art, cloud-based support program that is constantly evolving to provide you and your students with more information and resources to help them learn and have fun while doing so. To learn more about EEI, visit EssentialElementsInteractive.com.
One of the real great things about this profession is that you get to work with really special people, and I've had the opportunity to work with this next young lady for probably, the past 8-10 years. I've known her longer than that, but we've been serving together on a not-for-profit called the Music Achievement Council. And she is Marcia Neel, and she's the retired supervisor of music for Clark County, Nevada Public Schools. And she now is running an organization called Music Education Consultants, and she does a whole lot more. But Marcia's joining us to talk about a special program that we have going with the Music Achievement Council. So Marcia, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here, Charlie. Thanks.
It's great to have you here. Too bad we can't be doing this in person, but this is the best we can do.
I know it's a lot warmer here than it is where you are. That's for sure.
Rub it in, girl. It's snowing here right now. So, yeah. Well, Marcia, as I mentioned, you're the retired supervisor of music for Clark County, Nevada. But I don't really know about where you grew up and where music started. I know you taught choral music at one point in time, but tell us about where you grew up and how music became a part of your life.
Sure. I'm actually from the Dayton, Ohio area. I went to Fairmont West High School in those days. And as a junior high student, my choral director saw something in me that he actually brought out even more than I even knew. I loved playing the piano from second grade on up. And I was accompanying. And at one point he said, "Hey, why don't you conduct some warm-ups?" And I think I was in the 7th grade at that time. And so I got up in front of the choir and started conducting warm-ups. And it just came out just as natural as can be. And I have to tell you, Charlie, it was like a light bulb went, bing, this is what I want to do. And so one thing led to another. And then he was also my high school choral director. And as a senior in high school, I actually got one of the choirs to work with myself. So I had the women's chorus and we would go to festival and all that kind of thing. But it was an amazing experience. And then I went to college at Miami University in Oxford, Ohio, and had, again, another wonderful conductor who saw in me something that I just didn't realize it was so deeply embedded. And literally, I would go to voice lessons with my choral director I'd sit down and we'd say, okay, now, what's the best way to conduct a Gregorian chant? Or what does this mean in the Carmina Burana? And we would talk, scores. We never got around to too much singing, actually. It was more about, that choral thing and studying scores. And I found out I just loved doing that. So that's how that all got started. So I'm originally from Ohio. So you're going to probably say, then how'd you get to Vegas, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, how'd you go to the dark side? I mean, you became a supervisor of music, in Clark County, Nevada. How did that transpire?
Well, my husband was in the hotel industry, and we actually met on a plane. I fell over his lap in an air pocket. So that's how we met. And eventually, he was recruited to come out and work here in the hotel industry. So we came out here in 1979, and I was interviewed for a position in one of the high schools here and got the position. So I taught high school choir for 14 years before I was recruited to be a supervisor. And I think that happened because I became a monster advocate. I would tell my kids to go home and tell their parents to call the governor because there wasn't enough funding for education. And man, I'll never forget the principal coming down to my room and saying, Marcia, I'm getting calls from the governor's office. Tell your parents to stop calling the office, But anyway, that kind of thing. And so then I became the president of the Nevada Music Educators, and one thing led to another. And I think, it was that deal where something emanated from me that said this person should be in charge when the opening comes. And when the opening came, in the meantime, I had gone and gotten an administrative degree. And so I was on my way. And so I got chosen to do this job. And then I did that for another 14 years here in Clark County. So we built a huge program back in the early 2000s. Between 2000 and 2010, our school district built 100 schools.
Yeah, people don't know. Yeah, for people don't know, Clark County, that's the area around Las Vegas. And I mean, the size and scope of that music program was nuts. I mean, how many kids did you have involved, and how many teachers did you have involved?
Well, okay, so now we're right at about 500 music educators, and our school district is 8,000 square miles because it encompasses the entire county. In addition to that, we are the 5th largest district in the nation, and currently we have, in the secondary level, an enrollment of approximately 75 to 80,000 students just in secondary music alone. It's a lot of kids. Now, I don't have figures for this year, because, we're probably down a little bit, but it's pretty amazing. It's a huge program. Probably more instruments in this one location than anywhere in the world, actually.
Well, yeah, you probably don't have that because you're not in charge of that anymore. I mean, you now head up music education consultants, and you're the senior director for education of education for Yamaha. And like I said earlier, as we both do, we serve as educational members of the Music Achievement Council. So how many years have we been doing this?
Well, I think we started, Charlie, around 2012. So we're like 7, 8 years in doing this with the Music Achievement Council. And I started the company when I graduated to retirement in 2007. So I was doing that for 4 or 5 years. And Rick Young from Yamaha at the time was the head of the Music Achievement Council, and he asked me if I would come on as an education advisor. And I think you came on shortly thereafter. So we've been doing this together for quite a long time.
And it's been a lot of fun. And I just love the mission of the Music Achievement Council. I mean, we're there to help teachers. We're here to help kids. We want to get more kids involved in music. We want kids to stay in music. There's a whole bunch of wonderful things that we're going to talk about here real quickly. And our goal is, like I said, to help get and keep more music makers. But the one special program I want to talk about, because otherwise I'm going to forget and we're not going to get to this, is this thing called the First Performance National Day of Celebration, or as you like to call it, FIPPenDoc. But
I do.
The First Performance National Day of Celebration. Let's talk a little bit about how that evolved.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so it started with the concept, we've had this out for a long time, and basically it was the first performance concert. A lot of people will remember this. But what we did is, through one of the members of the council said, wouldn't it be a great idea if we just sort of made a big thing out of it, bigger day out of it? So now we're going to really celebrate beginners. The concept being, if you can think about young children who go to play soccer, for example. You know, we don't go to soccer practice and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse and rehearse. And then when the kids understand enough about soccer, we put them in a game. No, they go out there, they start kicking, they go in the wrong direction, they make mistakes, you know, all of this stuff, they fall down. But the concept is they keep coming back because it's so enjoyable. So if we look at this first performance for beginners, right? This is not just for beginning kids, like, you know, whenever you start your kids in your school district, it's the same focus. It's the idea that we get the kids on the stage, mom and dad come, hear their kids play for the first time in a group setting, and really begin to understand what playing in a band is all about, or an orchestra. I mean, we have both versions for the FIP and Doc. So that's exciting because the kids hear that applause for the first time, and you can see their faces just explode with smiles and laughter because they've not had this experience before. And you know, you only have one of these in your life. You only have one first performance ever. And this is the one that's probably brings more people because they're so excited. And it works. And so we think of this as a huge retention tool because obviously you've recruited the kids in already, but this keeps the kids going because now they have that feeling of magic, what happens when they play. So they tag onto that, and then you can use that repeatedly to do additional kinds of concerts. Now, the other thing about this is we wanted to know for sure that kids can make mistakes and that's okay. And this is not a concert per se where every note has to be perfect. We're actually playing tunes right out of whatever your method book is. It's totally flexible. So it's not such a high demanding long concert. It's 20 minutes, 25 minutes. The kids have achievement certificates, actually advancement certificates that they get at the end that the director can download from the FIP and Doc site, which I'm going to mention here real quickly is namfoundation.org/FIP and Doc, which is First Performance National Day of Celebration, FPNDOC. And it's actually a certificate of advancement because at the end, once the students have been through this, the concept is they're no longer a beginning student. They are now a member of the band or the orchestra.
Yeah, you know, you bring up a couple of really important points, and it stirred a couple of thoughts I had. You know, the first thing that teachers have to remember is that when kids start playing in band, there's a lot of commitment that's been involved. There's a lot of time commitment. There's a money commitment that parents are putting out to buy an instrument, renting an instrument, whatever they're doing. And so, you know, this does several things. First of all, as you said, it affirms to the kid that, hey, this is kind of fun. This is kind of cool. I'm doing something special. And it also affirms to the parents that this money hasn't been wasted, that they've made an investment and now they're going to watch their kid grow. That's number one. Number two is that you said, you know, it's not perfect. And I'm going to disagree with you there. It is perfect. The thing we have to remember is that art is messy. Art is messy. You get messy when you get into art. If you're a sculptor, it's messy. If you're a painter, it's messy. If you're making music, it's messy. There's bad sounds and stuff. And so that's what's perfect about it, is that it's human, you know, touching on to the human condition. So I think that's perfection. And I think maybe Warren Benson, the great composer, said it best. And he said that at every concert, we should set up orange barrels around the stage because it's always a work in progress, right? And so for these beginners, this is the very first time that they're gonna be in the spotlight. This is like what it's about, and so this is like taking a look at the landscape before the bulldozers start really making a mess of it, right? So it really is perfect, and we've you've seen firsthand the incredible success that schools who take advantage of this first performance have. Talk a little bit about that.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things that I've noticed, we just did one of these live at a music conference in Kansas. And what happened at the session, it was so great, was that the parents came to the session, the kids sat down and started to play, and mom and dad started applauding, and literally the smallest thing, they play a whole note, which is part of what they have to do in the concert, you know, is play this note. And when they were done, mom and dad applauded like they had just played, I don't know, the 1812 overture or something. It was so exciting. We did this session at the Midwest Clinic for young kids as sixth graders who had to prepare. I mean, obviously the directors were a little like nervous about playing at the Midwest Clinic with their beginning band. However, the parents came and they attended. They were wild about it. Applause, applause, applause. And in fact, we actually did a bit of it's called Poll Everywhere. It's a software program where through your smartphone, parents can actually respond. And we built word clouds and they were so proud. And 100% of the parents who were there said they would continue to encourage to have their kids be in the program as a result of seeing that program right there. So, I mean, it's just, and the advocacy from the parents for them to see the goodwill of the kids and for the principals or the superintendents who may attend, because there's a script that they get and they just read through the script and the principals love that. So it's really good all the way around.
Yeah, and the advocacy that happens as a result of just the parents' excitement is enough. I mean, that becomes a buzz, and those parents talk. I mean, they talk when the COVID thing finally ends, they'll be back at churches and they'll be in restaurants and nightclubs and places like that, and they'll interact people, school board members, administrators, and you know what? They will talk about it. That word will get out, and I also encourage teachers to do one other thing with this program, with every concert that they have, because I remember when I was teaching, there was always that parent that was the obnoxious parent that always had to come up in the middle and start taking pictures while you're playing and performing and stuff like that. So I thought about that and I said, you know what? We're going to give them a paparazzi moment. And it's like, okay, like 5 minutes before you start performing, say to the audience, okay, if any of you want to come up and get a picture of your child or if the ensemble, the choir, the band, the orchestra, whatever it is, before we start playing, now's your time. This is your paparazzi moment. Well, if you do this with these beginners, my gosh, it would be nuts. And those kids would feel like total rock stars to see all the attention that they're getting for the fact that they're playing their instrument. So,
or even at the end, I mean, pictures with your friends, that kind of thing. That's why we're calling it a celebration, because it's a celebration. It's to celebrate these beginning students for this major achievement, because that first concert is a major achievement. And one other thing, just to quickly throw in, if the high school band students can find a way to be brought in as well, maybe they'll pass out programs or maybe they'll help us with certificates or something. I mean, this is a great way for mom and dad to like see those high school students and think, that's my kid. My kid can look like that. My kid can have that. So it's just a great recruitment and retention program all the way around. An advocacy program. It's the perfect, you're right, perfect program.
Yeah, and this year with the pandemic, we still want to encourage teachers to do this. Teachers and students can participate in this, and that's why when you gave the namfoundation.org/FPNDOC website, I mean, there's a video there, and then it kind of explains the program. And this year, students can do it.
Go ahead.
With this video. They can play along.
Right.
They can play along by themselves. You can get a whole group of kids to play along, but it can be like a private home concert that we've put on, and it's still this first performance National Day of Celebration. In fact, the student can practice it on his own, then he can do it for mom and dad, and then when grandma and grandpa comes over, I mean, he can do it again. It'll be like he's on tour,
Totally. I love that. That's great. So it's great because, and it's not one of those things where we're trying to get everybody to play at the same time. Not at all. So it's going to be loaded onto YouTube also. So it's a little bit easier to access for others, but everything is there, and it's like a play along video. The student will play along with a karaoke style kind of thing. Charlie, you did a great, masterful job of conducting, so the kids will be able to look right at you and play while you're conducting. And of course, we have the wonderful music that has been provided for us for free. Thank you, Hal Leonard, from Essential Elements. And so that's available to download so that the students can practice and be ready for the concert. You're right. It's all in one.
I think what we need to do, Marcia, is that we need to do First Performance National Day of Celebration Pandemic Week tour. And I think, you know what I'm saying? I need to be a t-shirt like on the back. It has all the tour dates, like Sunday, my bedroom, Monday, the kitchen, Tuesday, mom and dad, Wednesday, brother and sister, right? I think we need to do that. And those kids, man, will be wearing that shirt and they'll be like, yeah, well, we don't have the shirts yet, but that's an idea. I think they can do their pandemic tour t-shirt.
Well, and I'm really hoping that moms and dads will take photos of this or some videos and things that we can, put up hopefully on the internet so that people can see how exciting this has been during the week. We'll keep it going. We typically celebrate this day, the third Thursday of November annually. And maybe that's the day that the directors then could hand out the certificates or email the certificates to the students. But it just focuses everything within those first 8 to 12 weeks of school. Or so, or whenever you're ready. I mean, the kids are learning at certainly different rates at this point. So
yeah, and to the teachers that are listening to this podcast, we may not have a lot of elementary teachers on here. And if we do, I hope you do. But spread the word for us. Help us spread the word. Let them know that this is out there and this is available because, we don't have the finances to do a national advertisement like McDonald's or anything like that. I mean, this is going to spread from word of mouth. And this can be something that can be really special in your own community, And if you're really sharp, I mean, you'll be getting with your local media and trying to get some TV spot or a radio spot or a newspaper spot that talks about that your students in your community are participating in this First Performance National Day of Celebration, and they're doing it virtually. And I just think, I mean, this is one of those things that's coming to you that's going to help you build excitement. It's going to help you get kids in your program. It's going to help you keep kids in your program. And isn't that what it's about right now? Because when this pandemic is over, we got to have butts in seats. And this is a really, really important thing for you to consider.
And one more thing to think about is the fact that it also provides the students with a bullseye. Now they have a target and they know that their teacher said on this particular day, we're going to do this concert. It'll be at 7:00 in the evening or whatever. And it will last about a half an hour and all at the same time. And the teacher can say this all over the United States, kids are doing this. And so now you really are doing something together with a lot of other kids who are exactly your age. I mean, there's something really valuable to that.
Marcia Neel, you're the best, man. I just love you to death. And I'm so glad we get a chance to work together on the Music Achievement Council. And to our listeners, go to the Music Achievement Council. Just Google it, Music Achievement Council. And you're going to have a whole bunch of resources. We got tips and we got recruitment things and retention things that Marcia has been instrumental in putting together. And it's just fantastic. So Marcia, take care of yourself. I hope to see you soon, girl.
You too. Thanks a million, Charlie. You take care, all right?
I'm going to do it. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Marcia Neel is a dynamo. Or as a buddy of mine would say, that girl is a heat-seeking missile. Her energy and passion for music education and to get and keep kids involved in music is really something special. And this FPNDOC, or First Performance National Day of Celebration, is a really neat program. One that is now available online so students can perform it over and over. And when the pandemic passes, and it will, make sure you have a First Performance National Day of Celebration at your school. Have one for your beginners. Have a first performance for your middle school band, for your high school, or whatever group you're working with. The bottom line is that we, as teachers, have to celebrate performances. We have to be the advocate that makes it all happen. And as Marcia just talked about, there is no better time to start than when kids first start playing their horns. Coming up, my conversation with Cheryl Floyd.
This is Drew with thepodcastingstore.com, your one-stop shop for everything podcasting and remote learning, and a proud sponsor of Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and friends. Listen to what we've been working on in this clip from our podcast. I had a fairly interesting dilemma revolving around remote learning, specifically kindergarten, for my 5-year-old Timmy. He's taking his remote kindergarten classes on an iPad. The thought was that we could put a pair of headphones on Timmy and isolate him from the distractions in the room, and he could concentrate on learning. The issue with that then is that we can't monitor his lesson while it's going on. So then the idea that I had was to split the signal, but then the problem with that is if we put a pair of headphones on him and me or Jamie, is that then we are tethered to the iPad and can't attend to Sammy. So the solution that I came up with was to go from the lightning port on the iPad. To hear the rest of this podcast, please visit thepodcastingstore.com, your one-stop shop for everything podcasting and remote learning. This is Drew with thepodcastingstore.com. Now back to Charlie.
You know, in our profession, every once in a while, there's a star in the sky that shines a lot brighter than most other stars. And I think we got one on our podcast today. We're going to start talking to her in just a minute. This young lady spent 35 years as a middle school band director in Texas. But it wasn't just any 35 years, and it wasn't just any middle school, and it wasn't just any director. Her program was regarded nationally as one of the finest, if not the finest, middle school band program. And she was a pioneer in doing so many wonderful things for middle school bands and for band music education and all that good sort of stuff. And over the years, I've got a chance to know her and to work with her on several occasions, and it's always been a joy and a pleasure. And today, I have an opportunity to sit down and have a conversation with her, and I'd like to welcome Cheryl Floyd to the podcast. Cheryl, thank you so much.
Well, Charlie, thanks so much for inviting me, and thanks for that really sweet introduction. I appreciate it.
I couldn't find enough superlatives, Cheryl, to introduce you. So I'm sorry I didn't do a good job, but people are going to understand once we get going in here in this conversation.
Well, thank you.
So you spent 35 years teaching middle school band in the state of Texas.
Yes.
And you're known nationally for that incredible career that you had. But tell us about when music was first introduced in your life and when you first started playing a band instrument.
Oh, gosh. We moved from Alabama to Texas when I was 8, the summer before third grade. And the Dallas Symphony, we lived in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they had a grant program. And so they would have woodwind quintets, brass quintets, percussion ensembles would come out and play for our music classes at my school. And one year they came and the woodwind quintet came and played an amazing arrangement of Peter and the Wolf. Well, I'd never heard that. And I fell in love with the flute part. And I thought, I want to learn to play that on the flute. And so when the opportunity came for me to join the band, that's what I wanted to play. Of course, I didn't learn to play that until I got to college. But I started in the 7th grade in the Hurst-Euless Bedford area. We did not start until the summer before 7th grade. And I had a wonderful, absolutely wonderful first year teacher, beginning band teacher. Her name was Vicki Coles. So one of the few women at the time that was teaching band. She was an amazing singer and saxophone player, and she was all about the fundamentals, man. So we were in that Silver Burdette method book and learning our scales and stuff. She was amazing. My band director in middle school, John Mason, was a great guy, but literally the music that we had, our best music were things like Sonus Ventorum and Rhythm of the Winds. And those are great pieces for then. But then I went to high school. Tommy Nugent was my band director at Trinity High School. And we played School for Scandal and Florentiner March and La Fiesta Mexicana. And I thought, whoa, this is amazing. So neither of my parents are musically inclined. My dad has a beautiful voice, and I always loved to stand next to him in church because he was such a great singer. But I think the spark that lit my fire was having those ensembles come to my elementary school when I was younger.
And you said in 7th grade playing the flute.
Right. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So how was your experience different when you were in school than the experience you had hoped to provide or that you did provide to your students when you taught? How was that experience different?
I think I got really hooked on some amazing music, starting in high school. And then when I went to Baylor, whether it was what we were playing in wind ensemble or the King Singers coming to Baylor and all the other groups that came. And I was just totally amazed at that level of music. And I really, when I started teaching, I was amazed that there wasn't that level of music for middle school kids. And I really wanted to find it.
So when you graduated high school, did you know your career path was going to be music?
Well, I knew I wanted to be in music. I didn't really know what the music ed degree was. You know, I thought I wanted to be a band director because I loved my band directors very much. I only had one female role model at the time, so I I just went to Baylor thinking I loved playing the flute and loved playing great music, and I guess I was going to figure it out.
Yeah, I remember going to college the first time too, and they go for orientation. They sit you down in that room and they tell you all these different classes you have to teach. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. I just wanted to be a band director. I didn't realize I needed to know all this stuff, you know?
No, at Baylor, you have to take, religion. You have to, everyone else took Old Testament and New Testament, and the music majors only had to pick one. So
Well, that was a blessing for you,
that was a blessing.
I guess, right?
I think so.
So what do you remember most about your college band experience?
The great music, playing sounds, shapes, and symbols, mountains rising nowhere, playing for TMEA. That was pretty amazing. The first times that I really got to play some incredible piccolo parts, the people I met. I mean, the guests that came in, whether they were guests for my music classes or we had something called forum that you had to go to, and they would bring in political people. I mean, it was just an eye-opening experience from the very beginning.
And obviously that experience helped influence your teaching career. I mean, with all the repertoire, correct?
Absolutely. I just didn't know that there was all that music out there, that wonderful, exciting, beautiful music. And then of course I wanted to share that with my younger ones.
So during your 35 years of teaching, I mean, you had an incredible, successful resume. I mean, my God, performed at the Midwest Clinic. You did the Music for All National Concert Band Festival, the Western International Band Clinic. You also received the Sudler Cup from the John Philip Sousa Foundation. You were a finalist in the TMEA Honor Band competition 12 times, and I've probably missed 150 other things that you accomplished. And that's the result of a lot of hard work. There's no other way around it. You know, we always say, oh, we have great students and we have supportive parents and all that. Yeah, that's true. But we know that the bottom line of this is that there's a great teacher standing there. So share with us your philosophy that led you to achieve so many of these great things.
Well, I think when I was at Baylor, one of my introduction to music ed classes, Dr. Casey was my professor. And he, I remember the quote, "Teach the young with only the very best." And that had a huge impact on me. In fact, I wrote it every year when I'd get one of those blue lesson plan books. I would always write it in the front. And I really, really tried to make that my mantra as I started teaching. I didn't really know what I was doing when I started teaching. I was by myself. I didn't have an assistant. It was a rather small school, but luckily I had a great mentor. My husband served as a great mentor, and I was around a lot of great music educators at the time. I was lucky. I was lucky in that regard, and that they, a lot of those great people just really influenced me in the right direction.
So in order to achieve all of this wonderful things that you did, you obviously had to have support from your school administration. And to do that, you had to develop a successful relationship with them. So talk to us a little bit about how you worked with your school administration.
Well, I had a principal at Murchison, Isabel Cortez, and she said one time, she said something like, "You always make me look good." So if there was a bank opening nearby, and she would say, "Hey, can you take the jazz ensemble? I'll get you a bus. And can you take them over and have them play for the opening of the bank?" And I'd be like, "Okay, sure, I'll do it." So I always tried to represent the school the best we could, however it was. I had a principal at Hill Country that when one year the middle school conference was in Austin in late January, I think, and he came and said, I want you to take the band to play at such and such a time. And we had to take our own chairs and our own stands, and he provided for that. He helped us do that. So I think, having the relationship that, when you're asked to represent the school, that you do, and you do it the best that you can. I always tried to keep them in the loop so that there was never a surprise. If I wanted to apply for a festival or some such, I always went and asked permission first on that. I would make sure my principal knew what we were doing. There were even times that we had been invited to do things that I didn't think that they were the right things for us to do, and I would go and talk to the principal about that as well. And I had marvelous parents. I mean, they just always wanted to help. The middle school parents are, well, in elementary school, your kids like you around, and your homeroom mothers and all those kinds of things. And you get to middle school, the kids don't want the parents around quite as much. So my parents seem to appreciate the opportunities to serve their students at the middle school level, however we needed help.
Yeah, you touched on a couple of really, really important things that I want to dwell on for just a second. And the first one is that whole thing about when an administrator asks you to do something for the community. And in many cases, that's visibility is the only thing the community sees about the school. And they judge the quality of the entire school by the band's performance at the bank opening, right? And so, and then you talked about when there are things that maybe you were asked to do that you didn't feel like were the right things to do, that you had that relationship with your administrators, that you could go in and sit down and say, hey, maybe this isn't the right thing for us to do, would like to do that. Maybe there's another way that we can get that request solved. But, I think having the ability to go in and have an honest communication with them so that you keep your priorities straight, so that you feel like you're not being violated in terms of what you're trying to do to teach band and teach music with your kids. I think that's so vitally important. I really credit you on that. And also the other one is about parents. The parents got involved because they obviously realized you were doing good by their kids. And that's why they're there. I mean, parents, guess what? When the kid leaves the program, the parents stop coming to the concerts. And if that's not enough for teachers to realize that the parents are there for their children, and they're not there to hear the music. Unfortunately, they enjoy the music, but they really enjoy their child playing an instrument in the band and all of that. So obviously you were doing great things for your kids.
Well, I hope that's the goal.
Obviously you did. Well, one of the things you may be most remembered for is commissioning new works for wind band, works by composers. I think you've had, Frank DeKelly was Cajun folk songs, right? I see it on your wall behind you here in this Zoom call. Yep. You had John Mackey, Ron Nelson. The Ron Nelson pieces, by the way, is one of my all-time favorites. I just love that piece. But these have become staples in the wind band world. And we all both know that working with a composer is completely different than a school saying, hey, we're going to commission a composer, and they call a composer, and the composer says, yeah, I'm finishing a work right now. Send me $2,500 and I'll put your name on the top of it and you'll be commissioning a work. And that's as far from commissioning a work as you can possibly get, right? That's just buying a billboard. When you worked with a composer and they asked you what you were looking for in the composition, what did you tell them?
I think as I tried to maybe guide or suggest, I really tried very hard not to give a lot of parameters. I very much wanted the composers to write what they did for middle school kids. That was usually one of my first requests, is that you do what you do, but on my level for my students. And, I would do things like, here's the percussion stuff I've got. Don't write a piccolo solo this year, or an E flat clarinet solo, or anything like that. Or, my trumpet, their best high note now is this. I tried to give very small parameters. I didn't say, please write a bassoon solo this year. My bassoonist is the most marvelous one, because in addition to having the very best music available for my students. I wanted that piece to have a life after we premiered it. I did not want it to be, a one-hit wonder. I wanted many people to get to play. That was my wish. You don't know when you commission, you have no idea. You don't know what you're going to get. You have an idea, but you don't really know for sure.
And you also had a relationship with those composers in terms of you knew who they were. You had heard other works that they had done.
True. And actually, just to back up and talk a little bit about Frank, because that's the first one. He had actually, we had done the premiere of Portrait of a Clown, and in manuscript, by the way, because there wasn't anything like, Sibelius and Finale and that. And if you've ever tried to teach middle school kids how to read manuscript, oh my gosh, that's hard. And so we had done that. And then we were doing Fortress, which Frank wrote for my brother-in-law as a thank you to him. And we were playing both of those pieces for a festival that year. And so my husband, Dick says, CBDNA is going to be here, and Frank is going to come up, and he's like in San Antonio. And why don't you call him and invite him to come and talk to your kids about Portrait of a Clown and Fortress? So I did, and he said yes. And we had the piano there, upright school piano. And actually my music supervisor came, and the kids thought the music supervisor was a composer because he was the old guy. They didn't know who Frank was. They thought Frank was like some student teacher, somebody wanted to do the piano, like always. And when he sat down at the piano and started to play the melodies from the pieces, they were hooked. And they had the opportunity to ask him questions. And so when we decided that we wanted to do something to honor the first class of kids that I had started in 6th grade, their 8th grade year, all the kids said, well, let's ask Frank Kelly, because they knew him. They knew him, they had a relationship with him. And I'll finish this story because this is one of my favorite ones. But so when I called Frank to ask him if he would write a piece for Murchison Middle School, he said he was too busy. He said he couldn't do it. And I was crushed. What? Because it just seemed like, I would ask people to do things in the right way or a nice way, and people would say yes. And we were out walking the hills. Dick and I were around our house one Sunday, and he said, hey, have you done anything about your commission? They have to have time to write it, and you've got to have time to teach it. And I said, no, I haven't. I really haven't done much about it. I need to get on that. And literally the next week, Frank called me back and asked me if I'd found a composer, told me his schedule had opened up and that he wanted to write the piece for us. And I swear if that had not happened, I don't know that the others would have happened, because the relationship with Frank was so amazing. And I mean, he sent little snippets for us to try, and the marimba part that happens in the second movement of Cajun folk songs, he sent it to us on the bassoon and all these different instruments, and we got to try it out. And so the kids really felt like he was their composer. And so I felt like it was important. Just about all of the composers we brought in to meet the kids. They didn't meet Dana Wilson, although Dana did make some cassette tapes for them back in the day of the chant to sing. And then of course, Bob Margolis, he did not travel to Texas to meet us, but the relationship that the kids had, it was like their composer and their piece. They loved Viet Quang, they absolutely loved Diamond Tide. And when Viet came to visit with us, every single piece has a special, more than one special memory for me. Every single one. They're like little children.
So there's not one that's more closer to your heart.
I would, if I had to pick one, I would probably say Cajun, because that was the first one.
Yeah. And Frank is just such a great guy, man. He is the best.
He is the best. You were right. Yeah. All those guys are the best.
Yeah. Well, since you left your full-time position at middle school, at Hill Middle School, notice I didn't say retired. I said, right.
We're failing at retirement, Dick says. So
Yeah. You've done a lot of guest conducting. You've done a ton of clinics throughout the country. What's the message that Cheryl Floyd brings with her to each one of these appearances?
well, I try to pick the very best music, the very best program for when I'm doing an honor band. If it's an honor band situation, um, I'm a real big believer in. In fact, Dick and I have a clinic that we do, but in that there has to be something in the program that feeds everyone's soul, that feeds everybody. Every piece can't have a great tuba part. Every piece can't have a great bass clarinet part or a great French horn part, but there should be something on every program that uh, absolutely ropes those little kids in and gives them something to strive for, to challenge them. And Wesson, our son, is a Suzuki trained pianist. And so I've sat in on all those lessons, those Suzuki parent training lessons. And I think one of the things, besides loving watching him learn to play the piano, that was great. But I tried to take a lot of those techniques into my teaching. And that is, I've heard Dick say it this way. I want to take the kids somewhere they've never been before. I want them to have the experience they've never had before. We did a honor band in West Virginia for Don Wilcox a long time ago, 25 years ago probably, and that's a coal mining town. And a lot of those little band programs, there might be 10 kids in the program. And I was doing the 9th grade band, and so I had a little clarinet player come up to me during break one time and say, Mrs. Floyd, this is the first time I've heard all 3 clarinet players, 3 clarinet parts. And I was like, really? How many clarinets do you have in your band? And she said, 1, me. And so for that group of kids to have all of the instruments represented, all 3 clarinet parts, all 3 trumpet parts, we got all this percussion going on in the back. That was truly an amazing moment for those kids. So, whether it's the California All-State, which, man, that middle school All-State is something else, or it's West Virginia Honor Band, it just to take them somewhere they've never been before, play music I really want to play music they've never played before. And a couple of times I've had the opportunity to have one of the composers there. And that's always oh gosh, that's amazing. Totally amazing.
Yeah, the kids really light up when that happens. And like you say, we don't know where they come from. We don't know what their school situation is. I mean, I used to teach in Kansas, and there was one school, I won't name them or anything, but they didn't have a very strong band program. So every year, this guy, about a month before tryouts, would take all of his best clarinet players and put them on bass clarinet, so they could have an opportunity to make an honor band, like the district honor band, because that was the closest they were going to get. So
I've heard tales of that before.
Yeah, we have no idea. But Cheryl, we know young directors learn a lot from trial and error. I know I sure did along the way, and it takes us a long time to find our voice. So when did Cheryl Floyd find her voice, and what things did you struggle with in the process?
Oh, I think I'm still trying to find it. I think because I think we change, as we get older. Not only our priorities, but our knowledge, our bag of tricks. I think I actually taught a year in Tampa, Florida at a private school. And that was hard because I was Miss Music K through 8, and while I had taken elementary music techniques, I had never dreamed that I was going to do that, be expected to do that. And so it was the learning curve was very steep for me. And then when I went to Murchison, like I said, I was the only band director there, and every 2 years, the school board changed and they redrew the boundaries, and it was like, who knows what's going to happen. I spent 8 years at Murchison. But I maybe I started to find my voice with the commissioning projects. And I think that with the Suzuki experience that I did, that modified how I felt about teaching kids, how I felt about rote teaching. It totally changed my opinion of that. But I still think, I'm finding my voice. Right now, I have 15 little private flute students. We're sitting in my studio right now, and where I teach the little ones, and just how to teach them, how to expose them to the very best, and give them joy and excitement about making music, just like I did with my students at Hill Country and Murchison Middle School.
So if I was a young director and I was going to be interviewing for a job and I called Cheryl Floyd, what advice would you give me?
Find out as much as you can about the school, the band program, the school that you're interviewing for. Find out about them. Find out, do they have a choir? Do they have an orchestra? Jazz band? Find out what types of programs they have. Beforehand, do your research beforehand, so that you go into the interview a little bit more educated. You might chat with, if you can chat with one of the band, choir, orchestra teachers beforehand, that would be great, just so that you know a little bit more about the school setting. I think it's important. My student teachers, and I have had so many, and so many of them have done so well, and I'm so proud. But we would do mock interviews with them and all that. But you should have at least 5 questions that you want to ask, and it's okay to ask about things like salary and insurance too. Mm-hmm. It's okay to ask for 24 hours to think about it. I would want to know, in addition, I would kind of want to know what the band had played in the past, if possible. And you can look that up on the UIL, our festival board, governing body. You can look up what people have played in the past on that website. So I don't know if that's possible in every state, but you can certainly ask the other directors in the area if that's possible. I think there's so many things you can think to ask, but I know that your time as the interviewee is limited. So
Yeah, I always told the students that they should go in with one of a legal pad and one of those books, those flip books that fold together, And I said, have your questions already laid out, and in that, and then when you first start the interview, you say, "Excuse me, would you mind if I took some notes throughout?"
Oh,
and you start taking notes, and you open your legal pad, and on the right side, you've got your legal pad where you can start writing notes, and on the left side, you've got your questions that you're going to ask, because there always comes that point in the interview. They say, "Well, now do you have any questions for us?" And you go like,
Exactly.
You sound really stupid, right?
You can plan ahead for that. That would be, exactly.
Yeah. You are the 5th woman to ever be elected to the prestigious American Bandmasters Association. And you were the first middle school band director to ever be elected. So when you received that call, what was your reaction?
Well, when Jerry Duncan called me to tell me, I was flabbergasted. I didn't know any of that was going on. This was all done in secret. And I think about when, I don't know how many, I could figure it out, but conventions, ABA conventions that I went to as a spouse. And Carolyn Blanton, Bob Blanton's wife, introduced me to the spouses at my first meeting. And I I was so overwhelmed then. I remember going down to breakfast and the elevator doors opened and there was Claire Grunman. I just about fainted, because I was, I was thinking about what great people were members in that. Gladys and Al Wright and all of those people. It was just amazing to me. I couldn't imagine. I was here. I am just a little middle school band director. How did this happen? I was very excited. And one of the things you get to do at your induction is you do get to roast the membership a little bit. So I did have a little bit of help from my hubby in that particular regard, and because the membership enjoys that. But I just couldn't believe that I had been selected, and I was so thankful to Jerry and all the people who supported my nomination. It was just amazing.
So when you attend your first convention, you have to conduct a number. Who was the ensemble and what did you conduct?
It was the University of Miami. It was Gary Green's ensemble. And it was Eric Whitaker's Luxorumke. That's what I conducted. I was like, oh, I had to really practice. I had to really study. That was amazing for me. And there was another one of those moments that we were rehearsing and then we were finished. And one of the flute players on the front row said, I've never played for a woman before. And your fingernails are even painted. It was totally flabbergasted that, never played for a woman before. So, well, it's about time.
I remember that performance. I was there.
Were you there? I
was there. It was great too.
Thank you.
He also did, he had Michael Dougherty there too. He did a Michael Dougherty piece. I'm trying to think what that was. But yeah.
I was too nervous. I was too nervous.
Oh, yeah. It was. I remember when I was inducted, and I was at Wichita, and I had to do the John Adams piece.
Oh.
Yeah. Fast ride, short ride, fast ride, quick ride.
Yeah, it'll be over pretty fast.
Yeah, it was over fast. Oh, yeah, those were scary times. Those were very, very scary times. Yeah. So knowing the history of the organization of ABA, if you had an opportunity to talk to the founder, Dr. Edwin Franco Goldman, and have him to ask him a question, what might that question be?
Oh, wow. I think I might ask him if he could imagine the number of women that would be in the profession at this point in time. How many years is that? How could he imagine? Because it was a man's world, right?
Well, yes.
Yes. And men were the conductors and the music makers, the musicians in lots of the orchestras and such. I think I would ask him that. Because I'm sure he would be like, what?
Yeah, well, the world has changed, and that's good. I'm glad it has changed. It's so important that we see more women and more diversity in our whole profession. It has to be reflective of our world about us, and you've been one of the pioneers for that, Well,
when I was, another way that I was very lucky is that when we moved to Austin in December 1983, there were a number of women in the Austin area that were teaching band. Paula Kreider, Ann Peace.
Mm-hmm.
There were now I can't think. She's over at McCallum. But there were so many female band directors. When I would go to the summer meetings, our meeting before we started school, or our region music meetings, which were even bigger, and there were a number of women, not as men. It wasn't 50-50 by any means, but it was not like, I never felt like this was not something I could do. I had lots of female role models. So I thought, this is what I want to do. I want to be a band director. Why not?
Is the playing field level now, you think?
I think it probably depends on where you are, you know. I still think there's probably work to be done. As Dick and I've done some work for ABC College in the summer, and I was in New Jersey back in February when you could go places, and I think it depends on where you are. I do think when I I usually talk with all of the music majors at UT during summer band camp every summer. And Ryan Kelly has encouraged me to, we put together a mentoring program. And so they'd always ask about that, I'm a woman, I'm female. How am I going to get into this profession? And I always say, be the best you can every day. Be as professional as you can be every day. Show that you can work just as hard work hard every day, continue to get better at your craft, at your music making, keep getting better at it. And then people respect you for that, for your music making and your passion and your love for teaching. But I did miss that this summer. I really have enjoyed the mentoring process. I think most of my student teachers, I had a couple of ladies that were awesome. Rochelle Doyce for one, but I mean, she's done very well at a great middle school. But yeah, I think that's what I would say.
Okay, last question.
Uh-oh.
Everybody knows your husband, Richard. He's an accomplished conductor and director and administrator and author and clinician. He's done just about everything. I mean, he's headed up the Texas State Music Program for the UIL, and he just had a new book released from GIA, which, as I understand, is fantastic. I can't wait to read it.
7 days.
And yeah, his resume is almost as long as yours, by the way, and almost as impressive too.
I'll let him know that later.
So, what do the Floyds do to get away from band and music and band directing and all that good stuff? What do you guys do?
Well, we used to go to Jamaica and Mexico a whole lot. Dick is a scuba diver. He loves that. And when we first met, until Weston was in high school, we had a sailboat on Lake Travis. So we did a lot of that. Spending the night on the boat and taking dinner and doing all those kinds of things. We're both big readers. I'm trying to finish up Kristen Hanna's Winter Garden. If you know The Nightingale is another book of hers. That's a great book. We walk a lot. I don't know that it's the raging walk that Liz Jackson was talking about, but we walk. I just love that. I think about that now. But walk a lot in our neighborhood. We used to work out at the gym. Maybe we'll get to do that again soon. And as a result, Charlie, we've met a lot of neighbors we didn't know before. So it's a great thing. Everybody's got their yard decorated, their house decorated for Halloween right now. It's just we've met a lot of people, and we've become a lot closer to the neighbors around us in particular. So hopefully we'll, I think Dick's figured out, we had been last year on over 120 planes last year. And of course this year we're not going to make nearly that many trips, but hopefully we'll get to do that again someday. We really do enjoy not only traveling for music making, but also traveling for pleasure.
That's good. Well, I hope this thing passes. This whole coronavirus thing passes. I can't imagine. Can you imagine what those poor teachers are going through right now, having to do virtual teaching and all that?
I stay in touch with the two schools where I have private students from. One, Jessica Gonzalez at 4 Points Middle School. I started her on flute when she was in 6th grade. So you have a special relationship there. So I talk to them a lot. And Kristen Hames, who's at Hill Country now, about what they are going through. And I couldn't imagine having, my face-to-face students 6 feet apart with their PPE on, their beekeeper suits or whatever they're having to wear in the classroom, and then my computer with my virtual students. I don't know. I think maybe only younger people can do that.
Well, it's at this point in life that I'm glad I'm retired, that I'm not having to do that, because I'm sure we would both cope with it. We could both change. We would be, and we would do a great job with it, but I'm just glad I don't have to do it.
Right. Well, and they'll be on a Zoom. They'll be in a Zoom class, and all of a sudden, Zoom will kick the host out. Will kick the teacher out, and the kids are there without the virtual kids. Just so many problems to solve. I think just making sure that all your Bluetooth stuff's working, and you've actually turned your external mics, speakers on, and all those kinds of things. There's a lot of things to do. So I agree with you 100%.
Well, Cheryl, thanks so much for taking time and chatting with me. It's always a pleasure. It's great to see you virtually, and I can't wait to see you in person, so I can thank you for all that you do and all you continue to do, and just for being my buddy.
Well, Charlie, thank you for putting this podcast together. I really enjoy listening, and thank you from the bottom of my heart for including me. Thank you.
Okay, say hi to Richard and Weston.
I will. See you next time.
Okay, bye-bye. God bless.
God bless.
Cheryl Floyd is an incredible teacher, and her view about still trying to find her voice as a teacher is a powerful reminder for all of us that we must continue to grow, that as we gain experience, our priorities will change, our knowledge base will increase, we'll expand our bag of tricks, and in the end, we'll become a better teacher, or at least we hope we will. We want to be a teacher who makes a difference, a teacher who wants to take their students somewhere they haven't been before. We want to be a teacher like Cheryl Floyd. Well, that's Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. Please tell your friends and colleagues about Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. We'll be back next week with another great conversation. And until then, this is Charlie Mangini saying, thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. If you would like to send a question to Charlie or have a comment, please send an email to bandtalkcharlie@gmail.com. We hope you will let your colleagues, students, and friends know about Band Talk with Charlie Mangini and Friends. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to being with you again soon.